Welcome to another episode of 30 Minutes with DailyStraits.com. Today we have a very special guest with us, Aaron McDonald, the CEO and founder of Centrality, one of New Zealand's largest blockchain companies that employs over 100 engineers across 5 countries around the world. Besides Centrality, Aaron is also involved with over 20 blockchain companies in various capacities. He is no stranger to the tech world and has over 20 years experience in the industry. And he also manages portfolios for various other companies with over 1 billion in revenue. So today we're going to chat to Aaron about how he felt when his company earned over $100 million in 6 minutes in 2018 by selling the company's cyber tokens. Hello, Aaron. How are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for that very kind introduction.
No worries. All right, let's just dive right into the questions. How did the idea for Centrality come about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there were kind of 3 things in our mind when we decided to form the company as a driving thesis. One was that we could see that there was going to be a consumer behavior change around privacy, and that the idea of building a business around monetizing users' data was going to be something that would be increasingly hard to do because people would become more concerned about privacy, regulators would become more concerned about privacy, and over time that business model would run out of gas. So that was kind of the first thing. The second thing was looking at the funding landscape, and particularly down in this region, there's kind of a gap in the market for funding between early stage companies and exits. And you can see that replicated in a number of different countries. So building a venture business in those markets is difficult because access to capital is difficult in those intermediary phases. And then lastly, having kind of done some work in venture previously, I could see that a lot of venture businesses kind of have a spray and pray type philosophy, which is, have a thesis about an area that you want to invest in, and you invest in a bunch of companies, and you might get the good ones doing some work to help those companies develop. But no one really kind of manages the portfolio as a portfolio. And so we kind of put those 3 ideas together and created this, this business which could help find capital in different ways, help solve the technology problem around privacy and individual data rights, and bring a group of ventures together to collaborate to help each other grow and trying to get that really sticky, connected portfolio effect.
Awesome. Have you always been interested in all things tech from a young age? Because one would think, if you want to start a business, go with something simpler, but you went with blockchain, and not many people understand what it is. So take us back to how it started before you, who's your tech idol? Do you have a tech idol?
Yeah, I can't say that I have a real idol, like a single person that I focus on in terms of wanting to get into tech. I guess I had always been a person who was interested in technology, and I used to play with, break my electronic toys when I was a kid and make other things out of them, so I always had this kind of inventive type of mind, and was trying to figure out how to solve problems. The people who've helped me on my journey along the way are lots of people I look up to and I've learned from, but I wouldn't say I have like one hero that I look to and say that, they've got all the answers. But I had some really great tech leaders that I worked with in my career that taught me a lot of skills about how to understand customers or understand markets or understand products, and then take that learning into kind of building my own thing. But yeah, I've always been a nerd.
Why blockchain?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And a lot of people build stuff in this space with no real clear reason why. And blockchains are really good at some things and they're really shit at lots of things. Excuse my language.
No.
But but what they're really good at is providing a different kind of infrastructure model, and one that can be community owned. And so if you're trying to solve a problem like privacy and individual data rights, you want to be able to provide a place for applications to live that isn't owned by a corporation, because you can't really be true to your promise about privacy if a corporation can change their mind about the rules that underpin that technology. You know, if your application exists in someone else's data center, then it's actually whoever controls that data center who's in charge of the policy. And so blockchains allow us to build infrastructure, a different kind of cloud where the users or the community is in control of the rules. And that's not possible with any other kind of technology.
So you started in your early 20s, right? Am I right? Was that right after college, after uni?
Yeah, so I didn't actually finish uni, and I did very well at school, at high school, and I finished high school a number of years earlier than I should have. But the university kind of, because I was so young, I guess I didn't really fit into that environment. And as a result of that, I kind of just got into the workforce. And by the time my friends graduated university, I was interviewing them for jobs. So it was kind of like a different path for me. And I think that on the job learning has really been useful for me, going from those early days and working for other people into running my own business, because I got to do everything. You know, I started literally from digging trenches for laying cables and telecommunications. So I've done from the ground literally up inside a business, and taken on, learnings through every role that I've been through in customer support and in engineering and product and management. And so that really kind of gives me a well-rounded view of the world. And when I talk with other companies who are building their businesses, I can understand where they are on those journeys.
So did you drop out? Did you go into uni and you didn't finish?
Yeah.
Oh, you dropped out. What course did you take?
I was gonna do computer science. Yeah.
All right. So
but I recommend, that if you are in university, it's also a good path. I have a son who's in university now, so I encourage him to finish, his studies. And I wouldn't say that dropping out is the right thing to do, but it worked for me.
Okay. Did you had any hesitation from parents and stuff?
No, I have really, really supportive parents, actually. And my dad in particular encouraged us all our lives to be entrepreneurial, whether it was when we were younger, setting up small businesses of our own, or supporting us and encouraging us to go and start working and earning a wage and saving and all those kinds of things. So I've had very supportive parents.
Awesome. So Centrality, you started this early 20s, am I right?
No, it would have been my mid 30s, I think.
Okay, so what was the first business you started? How did you ease that, how did you go into Centrality?
Yeah. I actually had a couple of startups before this one. And one of them isn't operating anymore. We actually bought the assets out of that, and when I started Centrality, and the other one is operating, but I'm not involved with it anymore. And I got a lot of learnings out of those processes. And that kind of part of that learning was what was and wasn't working in the venture side of things, and where the gaps were in creating a business, particularly around issues like a two-sided business model. If you have product but no customers, or customers that but no product, and how can you create this, if you're in that position, how can you create this portfolio effect where you solve that problem earlier by interacting with other portfolio companies? So that forms the way that we build the business out today, is connecting people within that context that solve problems for each other, and investing in companies that help solve those problems and connecting them to technology that they can share that helps solve those problems.
Okay, for businesses like tech businesses like yours, right? What is the initial investment? Because for other businesses like product based, right, they need to come up with a lot of money to buy the stock.
Yeah.
With tech, right, do you just need to learn how to code and the initial is very little?
Yeah, I mean, today the really exciting thing about, particularly about the blockchain space, is that if you're a good developer and you understand business, you don't need a lot of money, because if you write good code and it solves a real problem in the blockchain space, there's already capital there waiting to use your product. There's already users waiting there to use your products, and because it's all open source and open innovation, some of the boundaries that you have or the startup costs that you might have in a normal business or even in a traditional technology business aren't there anymore. And there's lots of ways to get in and get the word out about what you're doing and join communities and support them and build on other communities' technology that gives you a leg up in the market awareness. And people are always looking out for people that are building cool things. And it's particularly an environment where collaboration is encouraged. And that's one of the strengths of that technology space, is that people want you to build on top of what they've already done, because that creates more value for everyone as opposed to seeing everybody as a competitor.
So I imagine you're a coder?
I used to be a long time ago. I leave that to my development team now.
Yeah, I understood. So Centrality is probably one of your best, your best the company that you created. Yeah. Okay. How did that happen? Like how from the first few startups that failed, and then how did you get, Centrality going?
Yeah, I mean, like everything that becomes successful, you have to have equal measure of a good idea, good execution, and good timing. And so when we started the business, I had 4 co-founders who were all, successful people in their own right, that had been entrepreneurs before, that understood what we were trying to do and brought different skills to the table. And so having a really good founding team is a good start. That gets you on the way. And then the rest is a matter of kind of sticking to your guns and executing and well, not being stubborn about how you get things done, but sometimes you have to believe in the idea before anyone else will believe in you. And it might feel like what you're doing is wrong and will never work, but if you don't believe in yourself, then eventually no one ever will either. And then from there, the timing was good. We kind of started the business around the time where this technology started to become more, people were more aware of the technology. And so because we were a little bit early, we got to be seen as leaders, and that helps you on the journey and reinforces kind of your success.
So were you having jobs to pay the bills? Or were you just coding and doing your startup thing full time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary thing to leave a safe job and go and do a startup. And we went through that process of the founders put their own money into it. We're living off credit cards, my wife's credit card at one point. So, the pain of kind of starting with nothing is one of those things that I think if you haven't done that, you could never really call yourself an entrepreneur. And you see a lot of people, particularly in the corporate world, they try and create the startup culture in their business. And they just never will be able to, because they've never been through that process where you're up late at night worrying about how you're going to pay your staff the next day. Like that creates a certain type of behavior and hunger and thought process, which you can't replicate without that situation being real. So yeah, we went through that for sure.
Okay, and okay, so the first few years of Centrality was, can I say tough or?
Oh yeah. Business is tough. Yep.
All right. And then what was the turning point for Centrality? Because in 2018, you made $100 million in 6 minutes. So take us to, that exact thing that made it tick.
Yeah, we again, it's one of those things where timing helped a lot, but we had a kind of different vision in at the time about how to get this thing, which was quite new. The word blockchain wasn't very well understood, and the technology behind it was clunky. And our focus was on how do you make this stuff more usable, and that was quite a different message to what a lot of people were focused on at the time. And I think if you kind of play forward a bit, it's the thing that will determine the winners in the end, because it's all very well having technology, but if you don't have users, then it's kind of not worth anything. And so our focus on usability and creating this ecosystem of companies that could solve different parts or different challenges in a user's life and make that a really kind of cohesive experience was something that was quite different, and that grasped a lot of people's attention, and that's why we were able to kind of raise the money. It was also good timing. It was at a time where the market was very bullish, and there was a lot of capital flowing around, but it was the result of 2 years of hard work leading up to that point. And I will say that didn't stop being hard at that point either, because you've got to then take that and build with it, and build the community and build the ecosystem and build the technology and keep delivering. That's just almost like a second starting point.
So, okay, how old is Centrality, by the way? How long is the company?
I think we're now just over 5 years old.
So you did the is it called capital raising exercise in 2018?
Yeah.
Okay. And if I'm not, because I did read about it, it's called Ethereum, right? You sold.
Yeah.
All right. And you raised 100 million in 6 minutes. Instead of going to the stock market, you did this. How have you spent the money so far?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it goes into building the technology. So building and launching SenseNet, which is the public blockchain that we have. Built all of the things that help that usability to happen are in that network. And then the rest goes into building out the ecosystem. So, helping companies to come on board and use that technology. And there's a bit of the normal stuff you do around marketing and community development and all that kind of stuff, but those are the main things: building the technology, building the ecosystem.
It's a very smart way of getting money instead of doing public listing, don't you think?
Honestly, I think you have to be really deliberate about it. I think people think that doing things that way is an easy way to raise capital. In some senses it is, but at the same time it is very close in terms of how you have to act afterwards in terms of running a public company, because you've now got thousands of stakeholders who are participating in the value of the network, and that they're the people who are making the decisions ultimately in the end about how the network operates and all those kinds of things. So you kind of end up with a situation that looks very much like a public company, except it's quite a different one to compare, as an entrepreneur and as a CEO, because you're out there in the public, in the communities, online, talking to people. It's not like you've got these layers of bureaucracy and stuff that you'd normally have in a corporate that shields the CEO, and so you have this kind of more direct engagement with your stakeholder community. So you have to be prepared for operating in that environment, and so while it might seem like the money comes easily compared to building up companies in other ways, there's a whole bunch of other tax that comes with that as well, in terms of the way that you have to grow the business. And ultimately, the thing that we do every day is try and build something that returns that value back to those stakeholders, and that's the number one thing. If we do our jobs well, we don't have a job. It's kind of a funny thing because you're raising money to build something that you eventually don't own. It's owned by the community.
Oh, okay. Further to that, for this kind of capital raising, right? Do you need to have like annual general meetings where you brief the shareholders, give them dividends? Does that how does
Yeah. So I think if we're kind of separate two parts of the way the business works, that money, that $100 million is raised to build the Centrality network, which is owned by the stakeholders. The business that does that work is Centrality, the company. And so that company operates like a company. It has board meetings, AGMs, etc. And it actually raises its own capital. So that money that's on that side is for the network, and it's spent on the network and developing the network and the ecosystem and all that kind of stuff. So we do have a company corporate structure that operates like a normal business, and we have all of those kind of things, shareholder meetings and updates and all those kind of things. And then you have this kind of public entity that's owned by the stakeholders, and you're using that capital to fund that entity. And that's a real-time relationship. Our teams are in talking to those stakeholders who hold the tokens, because that's what they purchased with that money, every day. And I'm on Twitter, talking with them every day, and we're in Discords and Reddits and Telegrams. And that's my point earlier. It's kind of it's quite a different operating model, and it takes a lot of effort to do that, and to manage those communities and bring them on the journey as you're building this stuff. And sometimes it takes longer than they think that it should, and you've got to kind of be responsive to those concerns. So it's not a traditional corporate model where money goes in and you've got all of that money is to be spent on driving the shareholder value on this side. It's actually supposed to be spent on driving the community value on that side, and that's why we keep those two things quite separate.
So if they're not happy, do they sell the token? How do they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
It's like buying Microsoft shares,
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So how did you feel when you got 100 million in 6 minutes? Because the days when you quit from the time you left your university to all the first few startups of failure, and then boom, in 2018 you got 100 million in 6 minutes. So what did you like? How did you feel, and did you expect it?
I wouldn't say that I ever expected it. I mean, you can have hope. And we knew that we had something that was resonating with people. The feeling was like, I guess, elation, because you kind of have all those hard moments, and you get to the point where you get some validation that you've done something right, and that people are interested in what you're doing, and that it has value. And so it is a really good feeling as an entrepreneur to get to that point. But like I said before, that's kind of where the hard work starts, because now you got to prove that what you said is right, Mm-hmm. And that's still a journey we're on. Every day we're working hard to make that goal a reality. And we're dealing with multiple things which are quite different to a traditional business. We're in a new technology operating model. We're in a new market monetization model. We're in a new consumer engagement model. So you're trying to solve multiple new market problems simultaneously to deliver the outcome that we want to deliver. And that's a process that takes some time, and I think we're doing a really good job of, but we're not finished yet.
Awesome. Okay, since you're in the tech business, how do you keep up with all the changes? Because it's like it's a rapid phase, every day is a new day.
Yeah. I just read.
You read. You have the time, because you're quite spread out. You have 20, you sit in some boards.
Yeah.
Your father.
Yeah. I just every moment I'm not doing something specific, like actively, kind of working on a project I'm reading, and I'm trying to learn more, and I try and keep like quite a broad view on things. So it might be politics, or it might be economics, or it might be new science, or whatever. I'm always trying to absorb what's happening that's new in the world, and that kind of helps me to know what's going on and where to invest effort in, and what's coming in the future and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, lots of reading.
What's your number one go-to?
You know what? I get a lot of let's call it my content discovery happens a lot on Twitter. So I build up a list of people who say smart things, and then look at what they're saying or what they're reading, or references that they're talking about, and then I'll go and look those links up, or read what they've been writing. So I use Twitter quite heavily as a source to find smart people and things that who are experts in things I'm interested in, and then follow what they're saying and look at what they're reading or sharing.
All right, awesome. Okay, do you plan to move the business out of New Zealand?
Well, I think we've always considered ourselves as a global business from day one. We've had offices and teams around the world, quite early on, and we consider the business as being a global business anyway. And our community is global. Our developers and our staff work in different places around the world. We're a remote first type of business, so you don't have to be in New Zealand to work with us. Our community is mostly offshore, and we have venture companies spread throughout the world. So I think that sets us up well, and it makes us gives us other options in terms of finding talent, and that remote kind of ethos really helped during the likes of COVID, for example. So weren't so dependent on being in one place, because New Zealand is far away from everything basically, and so you kind of have to almost look outwards from the start, to reach customers and markets and stuff like that.
Is it easy to find? You did say that you hire remotely, but I was just wondering, is it easy to find the right tech talent in New Zealand?
New Zealand's got heaps of tech talent, and we have some awesome engineers here, but it's a competitive environment. I guess everywhere in the world now it is competitive for good technology people, because that's where the focus of innovation is. But especially with COVID, where we haven't had people coming into New Zealand, new people coming into New Zealand, but tech sector has been booming. There's been increased competition for good engineering resource and design resource and all those kinds of things. So while you can find really great engineers here, there's lots of competition.
Awesome. Okay, how do you divide your time between Centrality and also the 22 companies that you sit on board?
I don't sit on 22 boards.
Sorry.
So we have I think now 27 or 28 portfolio companies, but I'm only on the board of maybe half a dozen of them. But I'm involved with all of them on a regular basis. And
how do you divide your time, and attention?
I don't see it as a separate thing. For Centrality to be successful, then all of these ventures have to be successful. It's symbiotic. And so when I'm spending time with them, I'm adding value to the organization as a whole. And that's the way we've set this up. It's not an us and them type mentality. It's together stronger. We're not trying to be one unicorn. We're trying to be a herd of zebras that are running together, and we think that's a more resilient model. And it's something that's it's non-zero sum. We can build a community of successful businesses and all share in the value of that.
Alrighty. Okay, I just wanted to ask you this, following up to the earlier questions. Okay, you've already earned 100 million in 2018, but down the road, are you planning to go on the stock market at all?
Yeah, I think so. There's kind of, if you split our business up into two bits, the blockchain stuff where we raised all that money, the goal is for the community to own that. And so there's no stock market except you're on the market every day. You know, there's the tokens are trading, and that's what the value of the network is. And so so you could, in a sense, you could say we're already there. You know, it's publicly traded. On the other hand, the kind of venture and side of the business where we raised capital outside of that 100 million and we've invested in stuff like that, we run that more like a venture portfolio. And so the exits there are when those companies make exits, you know, just like a normal fund would operate and provide value back to its limited partners. So kind of got that dual model. In a sense, the money that was being raised is already kind of in that capital raise is in the public space already, because that network's traded, and the venture ecosystem is managed like a venture portfolio.
Also, the short answer is no.
Short answer is no.
Basically, what kind of and finally, like, what kind of advice do you have for someone like you in today's world, 2021, and they have no clue how to be you? What would you told? What is the first thing that you think they should do?
Yeah, I think the reading helps. You know, find people who are smart and listen to what they have to say. That helps me. One thing I've always told entrepreneurs that they should do is spend time with people who they think will be their customers. You know, if you've got an idea, ideas are great, but if you can understand your customer and solve a customer problem, then you're going to create something, or have a chance of creating something that's successful. So that would be the second thing. And then maybe the third thing is you know, have the ability to believe in yourself when nobody else does, and at the same time the humility to accept that you might be wrong. It's a very fine line to walk, because you want to be able to listen to feedback from the market and from customers and change, but at the same time you don't want to just be inventing a faster horse. You know, you want to be able to do something that's revolutionary and different that people don't understand. So that balance between humility and determination is really important.
Awesome. All righty. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for today. And it was a really great chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.